As you have already gathered by our comments, the Jefferson Council is pleased to have developed a wonderful working relationship with Open the Books, and we are just delighted to have Adam Adam with us here today and to share what he has found out in his team's researches. So thank you.
Not all of us can be blessed with the last name of Bacon. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for that kind introduction. My name is Adam Andrzejewski. I might be the only Andrzejewski ever to set foot on the grounds here at UVA. Thank you, Bert Ellis, for co-founding the Jefferson Council. Tom Neely, Jim Bacon, Walter Smith. What? It's Neil. Tom Neal. I should know better than that, Tom. That's for sure. With a name like Neil, it's like the old Smucker's commercial. With a name like Neil, it has to be good. Thank you, members, guests, for this opportunity to share our mission and vision. You may not heard of OpenTheBooks.com, but you know our investigations, whether it's Anthony Fauci. Yes, he was the #1 most highly compensated federal employee during the pandemic. Whether it was the staggering cost of U.S. military gear left behind in Afghanistan, we held the Biden administration accountable using their data. Whether it's the militarization of the federal agencies, including the IRS, that's our investigation period. Or you may have seen trending on national Twitter our map of San Francisco, and yes, we did use brown pins. There was a brown out in the Bay Area. Now, every single one of these investigations, as we speak truth to power in the most important fights in the country, were kicked off by a local whistleblower. We depend on the institutional knowledge of people to come forward with the courage of their convictions. So today, as I unpack our investigation of the University of Virginia, I am proud to say the whistleblower is the Jefferson Council, and it's a whistleblower on steroids. Everything that I talk about here today, you, as a supporter of the Jefferson Council, you have a big stake in all of it. Thank you. Now, some of you know that I'm not from Virginia. I'm from Illinois, and it is the Super Bowl of corruption. As a matter of fact, on public policy and politics in my state, if anything happens for the good of the people, it's entirely by accident. And our governors lead the way. At a recent period, 4 out of our last 9 governors, they've served time in the federal penitentiary. 2013 was a particularly bad year for my state. We had 2 governors in the federal pen at the same time, and one from each party, Democrat Rod Blagojevich and Republican George Ryan. But despite the corruptions in my home state and across the country, I am hopeful and optimistic about our future. And here's why. In the last 5,000 years of human history, you and I have been given the greatest of gifts. It's a constitution that recognizes that our rights, they don't come from government, they come from God. We instituted a government to secure our rights. And our founders knew that knowledge was power. They knew the power of transparency, and they codified it into the United States Constitution, and it's Article 1, Section 9, and it states that a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. And today it is the internet age, and there is a clear interpretation. Post every dime online in real time. Let's open the books. And that legacy of transparency was kicked off by Thomas Jefferson when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, where people in this system are sovereign. We're the most powerful nation in the history of the world, is accountable to the people. When politicians and bureaucrats spend our money in our name, we get to review it and hold them accountable. And then Jefferson's friend and a friend to the university here at Virginia, James Madison, wrote it into the United States Constitution, the legal document codifying the principles. And that's Article 1, Section 9 of the Powerful Appropriations Clause, Clause 7. And that is the legacy of Thomas Jefferson, James Madison. That's our legacy here at the Jefferson Council. That is the extension of the Jeffersonian principles, and we are proud in our generation to be able to spearhead those concepts. Here's what we've captured in terms of data at OpenTheBooks.com. We believe transparency revolutionizes United States public policy and politics. So to that end, last year we filed 55,000 Freedom of Information Act requests. It was the most in American history. We captured, for the first time ever, virtually every dime taxed and spent at every level of government across the entire country. I'm talking federal, state, and local. And I am proud to announce that we are using AI, artificial intelligence, up against that database. And we call our innovation Benjamin, the chatbot. And it's named after Benjamin Franklin, because he leaves the Constitutional Convention in 1787, and he's asked by a constituent, Dr. Franklin, what do we have here? And he says, it's a republic if you can keep it. And they have been gatekeeping their spending from you since the founding of the country. And our invention answers the burning question, what the heck is your government up to? So here's what we've captured: 25 million salary records every single year. Nearly every single public employee by name, position, title, and how much they made last year. You can search it all through Benjamin. You want to know the salary of the 5th grade teacher in that classroom? Benjamin can give you the answer. If you want to know the farm subsidies that your rural neighbor is collecting, Benjamin can tell you. If you want to know about White House payroll, just ask Benjamin 4 easy questions for free on our website. We feel that this invention is the most important innovation in the history of United States public policy, because for the first time, you can hold them accountable. You can follow the money. Isn't it time that the University of Virginia opened their books? It's been a knockdown, drag-out dogfight to get UVA to open their books. It's cost us $5,000 already on Freedom of Information Act fees, which the Jefferson Council has helped us pay. And we have been successful opening up a first-run data set. Here's what we've captured. Checkbook spending from 2023, last year's checkbook and vendor spending. Their full payroll record from last year. Their plastic from 2023 spending on electronic payments and credit cards. We captured that information. Now the university is fighting back. Wouldn't you like to know how much UVA President Jim Ryan made last year? Well, this is an open question. I'm going to break news right here in the room. We've already quantified cash compensation of $1.4 million. But the university is slow-walking answers on key Freedom of Information Act requests, and we think by the time they produce the information at taxpayer and student cost, President Jim Ryan's total compensation will exceed $2 million a year. And that takes 112 in-state full tuition payments from 112 students just to pay the cost of Jim Ryan. We're going to keep fighting and digging and clawing to get the information. The university is fighting back. So we got, as I said, the 2023 vendor checkbook record. So then we immediately filed for the year 2022. And the university has responded. And this time it will cost us $12,000 $40,000 for the 2022 spending of where they spent your money, taxpayer money, and student tuition money. And we wanted the travel records, and they provided a subset of their travel records for the past year. And the rest of the travel records are going to cost us a fee petition of $45,000. Now, we have filed 250,000 sunshine requests over the course of the past 5 years, and never has a unit of government wanted to charge us $45,000. Aren't you sick of diversity, equity, and inclusion? I'm tired of it as well. And so about a year ago, we realized that there was a first ever office of diversity, equity, inclusion at the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. They run K through 12 public schools, serving 80,000 students. And their chief, their first ever chief of DEI, had radical anti-white tweets on Twitter. And so we investigated, and we found that DEI was deeply embedded in all hiring decisions and professional development and in the creation of the curriculum. And we kept digging and clawing, and we worked with congressional allies, and oversight letters were written to Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of the Department of Defense, and the Department of Defense saw it our way. They terminated the DEI chief and canceled the department before their House hearing. And that's the power of transparency. I am sick and tired of DEI at the University of Virginia. So just like when Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida, he got legislation passed in Florida that eliminated the expenditure of public money on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So about 45 days ago, the University of Florida, they actually canceled their DEI department. 28 staffers lost their jobs. They reallocated $5 million. When that happened, I wanted to answer the question as to just how deeply DEI was embedded at Mr. Jefferson's university. And here's what we found when we opened the books on the payroll of the University of Virginia. We didn't find 28 staffers. We found 235 staffers, which included 82 students. We didn't find $5 million of total payroll cost. We found $20 million being spent. This was the equivalent of the first 1,000 students, their full tuition payment just to pay for the DEI bureaucracy. We found DEI deeply embedded into every single school at the college, with a chief within every one of those 27 schools. And you know the school's names. It's the medical school, it's the engineering school, it's the law school, it's the business school, it's even the police department. And at UVA, woke does not mean broke. The UVA, Kevin McDonald, he runs UVA for the entire grounds. And Kevin McDonald has a base salary higher than the President of the United States last year on cash compensation. He made $401,000. When you tack on 30% for the cost of benefits, his total cost to taxpayers and students exceeded $500,000. And then you've got the chief of global equity over at the Darden School of Business, Martin Davidson. And Davidson, he's a professor, he also runs an institute, and he's got DEI embedded into all aspects. You cannot separate a man from his paycheck. His base salary last year was $451,000. At taxpayer cost, it rivals $600,000 a year for Martin Davidson. And Governor Glenn Youngkin, he makes $175,000 a year. I am sick and tired of DEI. So what was the university response to our investigation? Well, Gabe Kaminsky, he joins us here. Gabe, you want to stand? Gabe broke this in the national press at the Washington Examiner. And the university responded, hey, those numbers, they're wildly inflated. We don't have 235 staffers. We have 55. They represented this to the Board of Visitors in May of last year. 1 month previous to that, they told the New York Times, hey, wait a second, we only have 40 staffers that are dedicated to DEI. So this was homework time. Show your homework for a university. You see, at OpenTheBooks.com, we showed our methodology, which was rigorous. We showed the database, the name, the position title, the department, the amount of money they made last year. And it was their data. So they say they only have 55. Twice I reached out to Brian Coy, the university spokesman, and he did not respond. We wanted to know the backup. What's the backup on the 55 number? This is very important. It's in the national conversation. You are saying you're dinging up our reputation. You are saying we are wildly inflated. Show your homework. We reached out twice to his deputy. They wouldn't respond. So we filed an open records request, and we got our answer. There are no documents responsive. They do not exist. The university misleads to the national press, to the Board of Visitors, to the Washington Examiner, all the other national media, and to the New York Times. We are using a rigorous methodology, forensic auditing, and hard data which comes from the university itself on a transparent basis to hold the administration accountable for their misleading information. But it gets even worse. As a watchdog from Illinois, things always get worse. You know what happened on September 11th of 2020. The Board of Visitors approved a $1 billion diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. It had spending over the next 5 years of $150 million for race-based projects. If you go to the university and all you see and all you hear about is race-based messaging, it's backed with $1 billion of their DEI plan. It's $650 million, not on a short-term basis, but a long-term basis, to endow the race-based programming on campus. And another $150 million for race-based scholarships and race-based chairs within the academic departments. $1 billion. Here is why diversity, equity, and inclusion is so pernicious. Equity is the opposite of equal opportunity. Equal opportunity depends on merit. And under equity, merit is racist. You are judged by the color of your skin and not the content of your character. And here's the dirty little secret. Those people running DEI, they know that it's antithetical to the founding principles of the country. They know it. They know they are undermining the American experiment. So here are the stakes. It's going to take courage to go up against this complex. But we have an example of just how hard we're going to have to fight. Thomas Jefferson led the way. Thomas Jefferson was courageous. I want to take you back to the world of 1773. The sun never set on slavery. Every single country either legally or tolerated human slave trafficking or slavery. It was on every continent. The powers in Europe, the warlords in Africa, it was in South America, it was amongst the indigenous people, and it was in Asia. All institutional force backed slavery. So when Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence with the line, all men are created equal and endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, and among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that was revolutionary. And it kicked off a chain of events across the entire globe over the course of the last 248 years. Think about what that's been. based on that single line at America's founding and the Declaration of Independence, we get democratic entities and Republican governments across the globe. We get government for the first time that's limited and subject to the rule of law. We get free commerce and free trade, and it begins the process of undermining slavery itself. And it takes time, but eventually that battle is engaged in as well. That took courage. That's the courage that you and I are going to have to display as we affirm the Jeffersonian legacy. Now, I missed the tour of UVA today, but I asked Jim Bacon what was discussed, and he told me none of this was discussed on that tour. None of the true, lasting value of Thomas Jefferson was discussed on that tour. And so this is our charge. Now, I want to leave you with the final story here. In 2009, as a young man, in 2009 and 10, as a young man, I did run for governor of Illinois. And I ran in the Republican primary, but I ran against both parties because they're both corrupt in Illinois. I ran on concepts you'll be familiar with: forensic auditing and every dime online in real time, radical transparency. And I was close. I lost by 5%, but I swore off politics, and this is the mission: to bring this to every corner of the country. And on that race, I had what is the greatest political privilege that I'll ever have in my lifetime. On the Friday before the Tuesday election, I welcomed into Chicago one of the greatest champions of freedom and liberty in the 20th century. His name was Lech Wałęsa, co-founder of Polish Solidarity, winner of the 1983 Nobel Prize, and the first president after a free Poland after they shed Soviet communist rule. And Wałęsa told a story. He said, in the early days of Solidarity, nobody gave us a chance to end communism on a peaceful basis. And he said the naysayers were correct. If you added up all the bullets, the planes, the tanks, the machine guns, we didn't stand a chance. Wałęsa said that he called the prime ministers, the presidents, the kings, the queens, the potentates from around the globe, and every single one of them told them the same thing: Lech, no chance. But Wałęsa said the naysayers missed the most important quality. The Polish people, the founders of Solidarity, the men and women, they had stronger principles and they had stronger values than the communists. And on a fairly peaceful basis, they were able to grasp the mantle of freedom and liberty. And here's why that story is important. Because as I look out here across the room tonight, and I have visited with you at cocktail hour, you and I, we are the keeper of those principles, and they are strong. We have stronger principles and stronger values than those people that oppose us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. You want to do a question?
Yeah, let's open it up to questions.
I want to do one thing here before we get to Q&A. I'm really looking forward to taking a couple of questions. I want to introduce a very important person in our organization. She's a UVA grad. She's actually a legacy. Her father also joins us here today. His name is Helm Dobbins, and our director of development. She's been with us for 4 years, made a big impact on our organization. Her name is Courtney Lyons, and she's in the UVA colors. Just Google Andrzejewski. Let's get in contact and let's talk. It's spelled like it sounds. Right. Yep. Right. Yeah, amen. Let's circle up. That's right within our wheelhouse. So, like when Dr. Anthony Fauci has been twice deposed. Oh, okay. So the question was, will you share skills and expertise on open records, Freedom of Information Act in the states with universities, higher ed across the country? Will you, I mean, I'm just paraphrasing. Will you share your data? Yes. You know, we've opened it up for everyone. We're a public charity. We take that seriously. So whatever we capture, you know, we share on our website, or if you wanted a little easier format, just contact me. We'll get you an easy to sort database right in Microsoft Excel. One second.
Can you do historical things? Can you do 5-year trends? Can you, does Benjamin go back yet?
So in a lot of colleges and universities, we go back 7 years. Now here at the UVA, we go back 1 year. We tried to go back, but now we're stuck on a $12,000 fee petition, which we're going to battle, you know, just for the next year. Right. I do think that, you know, if there's a governance change at UVA, one of the most powerful things that can be done right out of the blocks is for the Board of Visitors to take a strong stand on open records. Cut this fee petition stuff. I want to make an argument for no fees, because the administration's going to say, we get all these Freedom of Information Act requests, they're pesky, we got to waste a lot of time on it, and that costs a lot of money. Here's the other side. It is the most important thing that you can do as a university to show your students and your taxpayers exactly where you spent their money, and there should not be a fee bar to the First Amendment. How can we engage in a public discourse on university policies when the university administration holds all the data and we, the people who pay the freight, are locked out of seeing what they do in our name? That's patently unfair.
Adam, how do they charge you $46,000? That's outrageous.
Oh.
Can you go through the AG, Miaras?
So the question is, how can they charge you $45,000 for travel expenses? Well, Tom, I guess in a nutshell, we can safely assume they have a lot to hide, and their books are a mess, and there's highly embarrassing information in their travel records. Number one, I've read the fee petition, and here's what it says. It's going to take them 820 hours to review the responsive materials. Okay, I can tell you, once they turn it over, it won't take our auditors 820 hours. Like instantly, like within a week, we'll have distilled that and we'll be on television with it, believe me. I did the math on 820 hours. It's like 21 full work weeks of an employee. It's like half a year they would be going through the records. I mean, give me a break. You know, oftentimes these things are by design, of course.
In addition to the financial proctological examination you're giving the university.
Well, we just started. We just did one little area.
We love what you're doing. Are you also probing the academic content around ideology and things like diversity statements required on the part of faculty members? Can you shine a light of transparency on those things that are happening here at the university?
Okay, so everyone has a role to play. At OpenTheBooks.com, we are mission focused. We follow the money. We need a money component. Here's where curriculums would come into play. In the university checkbooks, once you have a vendor name that supplies curriculum, then we'll want to know how much was spent with that vendor for what purpose, by what department, and you can start to break things down, right? And that's why the money is so important. That's why the checkbook record is so important. That's why the line-by-line record of every single transaction on plastic, on credit cards, is so important. Think of your own household. You follow the money, or maybe you don't because you don't want to look. They don't want you to look at how they spent your money. Thank you. You guys were great. I really appreciate it. I told you. By supporting the Jefferson Council, you had a big stake in everything I was going to talk about. So I thank you. Thank you very much.